A very good morning to everyone listening. This is Budget Week at USISPF, and I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. Akhilesh Ranjan, an advisor to the US India Tax Forum at PwC India, and a former member of the Central Board of Direct Taxes. So, Mr. Ranjan, a very good morning to you. I hope you're keeping warm and well.
I'm very well, thank you, Akshop, and a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, good evening, rather, in India, rather. So, just a brief caveat: the USISPF has a dedicated tax policy forum which enables a discussion on important tax advocacy issues. And I think Mr. Ranjan is going to help break down some of the more complex things we're going to see in the budget. And at the outset, I wanted to ask you, sir, what are some of the big ticket reforms that corporates should expect from the upcoming budget that we're going to see on Feb 1st?
Right. Well, as you would know, India, like all other countries, is recovering from the pandemic. Um, certain figures are quite encouraging. The growth figures are encouraging. The fiscal deficit is under control, and there is a comfort from much higher tax collections this year. So there are a lot of pluses going around. At the same time, I think the government realizes that there's a long way to go to really achieve that high rate of sustainable growth which India needs. There's a large section of population which is still reeling under the COVID impact. There is the problem of rising unemployment, job losses, the disruptions in the MSME sectors and in the supply chains, and the threat of inflation reaching unsustainable levels. So it's a very complex situation at the moment where the budget is going to be presented. But I think this is the fourth budget that this government, which came in on 2019, is now going to present. It's still more than 2 years for the next general elections to come. So one can really expect some uh, tough decisions, some good decisions, some really encouraging signs on for reform in the economic sector. So I would first of all, of course, think that yes, there have to be some very specific and clearly spelled out measures for the relief of the poor and the low and middle income earners, because the issue or the problem of job losses and unemployment is actually a huge problem at the moment. There has to be a major push on the health sector, on the health services, and I think there should be massive expenditure on the infrastructure fund front. The Indian response, as you would have seen, has not been to spend too much in the initial days of the COVID, rather make funds available to the business community. But now I think the time has come for some really good spending. So then there could be some financial sector reforms, and on the tax front, I think the main issue will be on ease of doing business. The corporate structure had been changed just a few years ago. I don't think there's any further change expected. Said there should be some changes in the personal income tax structure. It is a bit convoluted in the lower income slabs. There is a But what is most important is that compliance costs have to be reduced, and the cost of litigation has to be managed for large businesses. And I think the government will be concentrating on these aspects and trying to really provide a greater deal of tax certainty to big business. So,
Yeah, thank
uh, yeah, that's where I think will be the focus of budget.
No, absolutely. No, thank you for that. And I think those keeping in mind the ease of doing business and the pandemic right now, given some of the global developments around the overall of digital taxation and India's commitment to propose OECD, the two pillar project, what should foreign corporates expect from the budget? Like, what are your sense of understanding of the unilateral measures adopted by India in the recent years, and what are companies looking at?
So, of course, well, India has been a very active participant in both pillars. On pillar one, there is a commitment that India will withdraw its unilateral equalization levy once the new system comes into place, and I firmly believe that India will honor that commitment. Then on the pillar two front, which is likely to be introduced earlier and implemented earlier, India is going to implement the globe rules. It's going to be very clear that no fresh incentives really, or tax incentives, but the existing incentives may be remodeled. But in short, it be a sort of a compliance with the agreement that has been reached. But not in this budget. I don't see anything happening right now because there are many uncertainties still to be sorted out, and especially pillar one, there are a number of issues to be agreed upon. Even pillar two, I think India will wait for the implementation framework to come into play before really legislating.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think so, on a final note, I just think so. We're looking for the budget. So overall, I think investors can expect pandemic relief coming through for the budget. But of course, investors would also be looking for, things that ease doing business. So, Mr. Ranjan, it's been a complete pleasure to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much for the time. And I'm sure we'll touch base after the budget for your analysis and your assessment as well.
Yeah, certainly, absolutely. A pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you, Mr. Ranjan.